Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brendan Hauser with EVOQ Bike. We have a great podcast for you with Frank van den Broek, and I know I'm butchering that last name. Sorry, Frank. My Dutch is terrible. He goes in on the nitty-gritty, nutrition, all the World Tour classics that he was a part of this spring, bike tech, what it's like making the jump from the continental level all the way up to the top. Just really sharing his story, getting into nitty-gritty details of high torque efforts, what he's doing in the winter. Sorry to pepper you with so many questions, Frank, but this is a really good, insightful podcast. I really enjoyed it. If you want to find something specific, look in the chapters below, but I think it all together is a great culmination of his training and racing. Thanks for tuning in. Hit him up on Instagram. Maybe you'll see him on Twitter. And good luck with your training and racing. See ya. Man, that was going to be one of my questions, like going from NXT top 10, saw you on the camera. It felt like every freaking second, especially at the end, into Tour of Flanders. I mean, what was the recovery like?
It was really short, really rushed. I also was not prepared for it. I heard on Friday morning, like just before doing just an activation ride for Saturday's race. I heard that I wouldn't go home after Saturday's race, but drive to the race hotel for Flanders.
You didn't even know you were going to be racing it?
No. It was I knew okay. I was a reserve, but I only got the call up like 2 days before.
This is okay. We're going to talk about this. Let's do, for a handful of people that might not know who you are, let's do a quick intro. Frank, and please pronounce your last name correctly with the Dutch accent. Who is Frank?
Frank, or Frank in Dutch.
Frank. See, I already screwed that up.
No, but everybody calls me Frank in English. So that's,
Frank. Okay. And it's Van den Broek?
Van den Broek.
Yeah, okay. Give us a quick intro. You as a cyclist, who are you? Who do you race for?
I race for a team DSM Firmenich PostNL. Since July last year, I joined the Devo team, and then I made a step up to the World Tour team now for the next 3 seasons. Before I rode for a continental team for just a half year, and then before that, I did 3 years as a club rider 4 years as a club rider on under 23 level. And that's basically my cycling career.
That's awesome. And you're 23 years old right now?
Yep, 23 years old.
So how long have you been racing for?
I started, I think my first license, I was a second year under 17.
Okay.
So I was, I think 15 years old when I really started racing. I joined like my local cycling club a bit earlier, but I only did some small races just in my local area.
So let's jump into what you were just talking about with Tour of Flanders. So you go and what was it like finishing? So you get the call. I mean, what was that next 6 hours? You finish the Volta NXT race, and then it's like you probably finish at what, 4 p.m., 1600 hours or so, and then you just drive to the next place. What were you just trying to fuel up as much as possible, or tell us about that?
Yeah, first, like maybe if I even start on the Friday, I got the call, but then the DS said like, don't think about Sunday at all, just race for the win on Saturday, and then after you cross the finish, only then start to worry about like the next day. But then we finished, I think, at like 4 or 5. Then just rush to the camper, get some food in. Mainly just I think a lot of carbohydrates is the most important thing at that point. Then had a post race meeting with the team. It was actually with the development team. I was the only guy from the men's program. And then I drove, I think it was around 90 minutes to Antwerp. Then got straight to dinner, still hadn't showered at this point. Then also at dinner, just cram as much food in, and then try to just shower, get to sleep as early as possible. But I still had uh, you know, the energy from the race in my mind and body.
It's hard to shed that sometimes, especially when it's ending so late in the afternoon and just rushing. I'm trying to picture myself going through this. What were you the only one from the development team going over to Flanders for the race?
Yeah, I was the only one.
Okay. And then what was the dinner like? What are most of the guys eating before 270K Savage race?
So we had our own chef, which was very nice. We had a start, I think it was bruschetta, and then pasta for main. And I think we had a healthy cheesecake for dessert.
What's a healthy cheesecake?
Probably not as fat, also not as tasty, but it's nice. It's nice to also have a dessert before a race.
You've had a wild spring of Omloop, KBK, Strade Bianche, Catalunya in there, I think. What have you learned so far? Anything that really sticks out that has just been eye-opening for you?
Not really, to be honest. It's just the pace in the races is a step up from last year, and also the final is really long. I think the racing really kicks off at like 120 before the finish at some races, or maybe even earlier, and then it's just full gas to the finish, or at least for me it feels full gas. So it's really a lot of suffering for me. But yeah, I've also learned that I'm able to recover well in between races, and I've had quite some races, but maybe 1 or 2 times where I had 2 or 3 weeks to get in some focus training. And I think I've maintained my level, which is one of the main goals for me this season, to really get as much racing in, gain as much experience, and also discover a bit what races suit me most.
What's your intuition right now saying race-wise, what seems to be a good fit so far, even though you're just kind of exploring this?
To be honest, it's only become harder for me to really choose something to specialize in. First I raced in Oman, but this was not really, it's not like racing in Europe. And then when the classic started, I was like, oh, this is so hard. I'll probably enjoy Catalunya a lot more. But then when I got to Catalunya, every day was hard except maybe one sprint day. And that was probably the biggest week I've done on the bike in my life. Which, yeah, then I think, maybe the classics were not so bad. So
it's all perspective.
I'll probably have to do some more races to really make up my mind.
There you go. Many years ahead, hopefully. How big was that week in Oman?
Oman was not so big.
Oh, what was the big week you were talking about?
Catalunya.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. How big was that week?
I think from a TSS perspective was 1,700.
Woo!
I think almost 30 hours.
Oh man, that is brutal.
And then I also looked at the time in zone, and that was also something I never done before. And
Tons of
and the last stage I crashed after 2 hours. So that puts more into perspective how big the week was.
Time in zone, was it a big dip towards the end, a lot of anaerobic smashing, or what was the biggest surprise from that time in zone when you looked at it?
It was more the time above critical power. I think it was maybe even 6 hours for the whole week.
Wow. Out of 30 hours. Woo! That's going to leave a mark.
Yeah.
You talked about recovering well. How do you focus on that? Besides maybe, I don't want to put anything in your mouth. What's your thoughts on that?
Main thing I think is getting enough food in. And that's also hard to manage because you don't want to gain weight, but you also don't want to eat too little. That's something that's really important. Then trying to get as much sleep in, and that's hard to manage, but try to focus on just the sleep hygiene. And the hardest thing is probably the travel. Just often either late travel or early travel. It's also hard to find a balance in this as a, I think for every team, most riders want to get back home after a race as quickly as possible, but you also want to, you just smash yourself for maybe 5-6 hours. That's hard to manage.
Yeah. When you talk about the energy balance, not eating too much, but fueling enough, do you find that harder on a one-day race or during a stage race? And the reason I ask that is one-day race, you're not eating for 5 to 7 days in a row, but you want to make sure you have enough fuel for that one day, but you probably can't throw it too out of whack. But a stage race, you definitely don't want to undereat on day 2 because then you're screwed for 4, 5, and 6. Which is harder to balance?
It's a one day race is probably harder. For example, at Catalunya, we had our own chef with us. And I think 4 riders had, we call it personalized plates. So all the food is measured and kind of, I don't know how the team does it, but the aim is to, manage your energy levels throughout the race. And compared to a one-day race, for example, all the guys that live in the Netherlands or close to Belgium most of the time, or at least for me, I drive to the hotel the day before, try to do a carb load, and then next day we race, and then I drive straight back after the race, but then try to get some food at a restaurant on the way back. And of course, you cannot always manage the food that you eat after the race.
So is the chef in tune with, obviously in tune with the sport, but is the DS telling him, hey, this is how much you're making, or is the chef the one breaking this down? And does he give, you guys have a pretty varied roster. You're not all Dutch, so you might have different taste buds. Does he cater to that, or is it like, hey, this is what we're eating tonight?
I think the chef just does what the nutritionist says.
Okay.
So I don't think the chef has much input on just maybe more probably the spices and stuff.
Make it taste really good.
How it's managed.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. When you were talking about in between all of this racing, you're still getting 2 to 3 weeks of focused training in. Can you recall what are you trying to hit on, or what are you trying to maintain in between these races when you have enough energy to actually do some workouts?
Depends on the races coming up, probably. For example, before Catalunya, I had around 2 weeks. I went to south of France with in the Pyrenees, and then I really focused on the climbing work. Also, the more sustained pace. Basically, once the breakaway has gone, the pace that is being set in the peloton is, for me, at times can be a bit hard. So we also focus a bit on this, and also get some intensity in.
What kind of work, when you say climbing, is it just riding around threshold? Do you do over-unders? Do you do anything, or just like ride the climbs at a specific pace?
For me, it was, besides just normal, quote-unquote, easy endurance rides, some endurance rides with some sections of, like for me, it's around 320 watts sustained. And then like maybe 2 times a week, either some micro intervals or more intervals just above critical power.
Micro intervals like 30-15s, or what do you mean by those? People love details.
I think this year I've done like a lot of variations, 30-30s, 40-20s, 30-15s also, I think. Yeah, mostly those.
That's awesome. What do you kind of, when you look back at 2023, what sticks out as one of your best performances or something you're really proud of in terms of racing?
I think the wins, but that's probably not hard to say.
Which one? Because you have a few in there.
I think my first UCI win, which was Ronde de l'Oise. I think that I won the last stage and then also won the GC. I think that was probably one of my best performances. And then in Tour of Alsace was also on the last stage. That's also probably most noteworthy from the.
Do you feel like one of those was one of the? You also had a pretty good rip at nationals. Was there something maybe it's De Loas? I might be mispronouncing that, but was that one of the races you feel like kind of caught people's eye of getting you to that world tour level, or any? How do you see it as? How did you get to the top? Because you're on, and I might mispronounce it, A block or.
Ablock, yes.
Ablock. You catch the eye of DSM, you joined the development team in July of last year, and then it's like you have some of these great races, and now you're at the World Tour. Is that an accurate kind of journey for you, or how do you see like, oh man, that was really a performance that helped solidify, hey, this kid might be pretty good?
I think for DSM, that was more a confirmation. I think at that point, I'd already been talking to them since like August 2022.
Okay.
And then I think before that race, I already made I'm not sure actually about the accuracy of the timeline, but I think we already made the deal to join the development team. But then those races were really more confirmation, and especially nationals, where we race with some World Tour teams. That's also a nice opportunity for the guys racing on the continental level to really show their level.
What's that like in terms of maybe a little intimidated or more excited for the opportunity, or how do you go into those huge races looking at, other athletes that you might have been looking up to at that point, and it's like, oh wait, I'm racing this guy now?
Yeah, it's really nice that you really have nothing to lose. So you can take some more risk, go in an early move, waste too much energy, and the fact that it's broadcasted on national television, it's also a good opportunity to get some exposure.
That's incredible. It seems like you come out swinging pretty hard in April. Is that accurate? Like you like to come out. I mean, you're doing these classics races, so you have to, but is that your natural? Some riders seem to like ride into the summertime, and that's when they're really focused. So when I was looking back through your results, I'm like, man, this kid just crushes April, sometimes in March. Like, is that your knack, or do I have that incorrect?
Yeah, I think so. In 2022, I had a really good winter. But then I was supposed to do a race in Turkey in February, I think. But then I got a COVID infection. But then also the earthquake hitting in Turkey, so the race was cancelled. Then I recovered pretty quickly, had a very good training camp, also where I hit some power records, which I think are still my best. But then I got the flu straight after. So then my season started a bit delayed, but then I really need some like either a stage race or just some hard racing in the legs to really get to my top level. And then I think last year in April I really started to perform.
When you say you had a really good winter, what makes you feel that it was a good winter? Power numbers or feeling, or what? When you say that, what do you mean?
Mostly a good feeling. but I think that comes mostly from consistency. For me, that winter I did a lot more volume than the years before, and also the power numbers when they are when they are higher, then I'm happy.
Yeah. Did you have a volume target, or what was a big winter for you?
I wouldn't say I had a target. It was more just trying to ride as much as possible without becoming too fatigued.
And when you look at the fatigue, is that just how you feel day to day? Like, do you schedule in times for rest, or do you just more do like, oh, I'm feeling kind of tired, I'm going to take a couple days off?
I think I was pretty stable on 3 days on and 1 day off.
Okay.
So even if I was feeling good, I would still take an easy day. And then, mostly just feeling how, when I wake up, how do I feel on the bike? When I just ride at an easy pace, does it feel easier than the days before, or do I think like, shit, I really can't push today? It's mostly based on that feeling.
Okay. And then do you stay in the Netherlands for the winter?
I live still with my parents in the Netherlands, but I try to go to Spain. This year I did it around the team camps, so I had less travel days. But the quality of training and just the quality of life, getting some sunshine, that really makes a big difference.
Huge difference. Can we go in then on maybe even looking at the winter of 2022, maybe December, January, February, March? What are you doing? Are you just doing easy stuff when you're that far away from racing? Are you doing some intensity? Maybe like the beginning of winter and then the end of, or we'll call it the off season, end of off season, beginning of off season and end of off season. How do you look at those?
I think first few weeks in November are just try to enjoy the bike rides as much as possible. Get back into the rhythm of it's maybe not training at that time, more exercising, and try to expand. Like maybe start with 2-hour rides and then build up to maybe 4 hours. Then I think in December I really started focusing more. Then I had, I think, 3 weeks in Spain where I did a lot. I don't know if it was too much. I was just enjoying riding my bike at that point. And then I also did some, maybe once or maybe twice a week, but probably once a week that winter I did a lot of over-unders around FTP or critical power, that turn point.
How long do you do them, or do you do them like kind of free flowing, like, oh, I'm just going to do them up this climb, or you say, hey, I'm doing 3 for 15 minutes, or how do you break that down?
I think that winter I did 1 minute, maybe 4:10, 4:20, and then 3 minutes, 3:60. That's just from memory, and then for like 15 to 20 minutes, and then 2 or 3 sets depending on. I try to progress a little bit week to week.
Progress with time? Just go a little bit longer or a little bit harder?
Both probably.
Okay.
I think time is easiest to manage, but sometimes you just feel you can push more than the last session. So probably both.
Okay, cool. And then what about as you got into, let's say, January, February? So you're maybe 8 weeks out from the first race. How does training change at all?
Probably a bit more intense in like end of December, start of January. Really try to up the ceiling, and then just before the races be more specific for the demands of the race.
And so are you back in the Netherlands then at this point? Like, are you riding inside sometimes? Are you just going out and gritting through the winter there?
I remember in the winter of 22, 23, I was the whole of January in the Netherlands. But I remember most of my teammates at that point were in Spain.
Oh,
And they were... someone told me they would train in sunny Spain. And when he got back, they would look at Strava and they were amazed at how much I was doing on icy roads. But that was a lot of just easy hours.
okay.
And then I remember I did some, higher torque intervals. And here I can only do them indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe only like 1 minute I can manage. There's one hill nearby. But that's a bit hard to manage here.
If you're doing them inside, what type of RPM do you shoot for and how long do you go for?
That year I did, I think, 4 minutes I started at aiming for 70 Newton meters, which is,
Okay.
I think, 380 watts at 40 RPM, around that area. And then try to progress a little bit.
Whew, man, you really grind that out. That is some torque. And then when you say up the ceiling, is that doing VO2 max work or get a little more nitty gritty on that?
I think for me, some VO2 max intervals. I don't think I need a whole lot, but just few to really get the VO2 max increase. I can't measure my VO2 max at. I think I've only done one VO2 max test in my life, but just judging from the 5-minute power around that duration, try to up that, and then for my style of racing or the races I do, I don't think that's really an important metric. So closer to the races, for me, it's probably more important to have more the repeatability and or sometimes when you try to go with an attack or attack yourself, to have that ability to keep riding afterwards.
How do you judge that or get a litmus test on yourself before the races start where you feel like you're riding really well in terms of repeatability? Is there a certain session that you do where you complete it and you feel like you recovered well in between the efforts and you hit the numbers that sort of stands out to you? Or what's your gauge?
To be honest, it's mostly just wait for the race and see and find out.
Fair enough. That's a good litmus test in itself.
Yeah, and you only have so many days in a year where you can really push yourself. And we have a lot of races where we get the chance to really test the legs and prepare for the season. This is probably one of the main differences between all the professional teams and the more club teams or amateur riders, where the racing starts a little bit later.
So is that how you went into Oman? Just, hey, I'm going to go see what's going on and get a sense of how the training's been? Is that sort of the vibe amongst the peloton as well?
I think so. I think everybody knows from their training camp in January where their level is compared to their teammates. Just riding in the group, how comfortable they are. And then I did I had quite some intense sessions also before, and also some preparation for the heat in Oman. And then just with a very curious feeling about what the shape in the race would be.
What do you do for heat training?
Mostly rides indoors with either rain clothing, or I also have some suits to make it a bit easier.
So you're putting on like a plastic suit basically in riding?
Yeah, and just get sweating basically.
You must get absolutely soaked.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Probably, yeah, good. There was I can't remember who was talking about this a few years ago that was doing that. Ah, man. But they said it was super effective. I think it was on a Velo News podcast, maybe. So when you look forward to what are the big races coming up for you in the rest of the year of 2024? For those that we're recording this on actually April 1st, probably won't post it until May. What races do you have coming up the rest of this year?
So I do next up Brabantse Pijl, Amstel Gold, and then I go to Turkey. I think this is all in April.
Okay.
I've got to be careful with how much I reveal. And then
don't say anything that's going to get you in trouble.
No. If it's released in May, then I can probably say that Tour of Hungary is also on the plan.
Cool.
And Eschborn, Frankfurt in between.
Okay. So what do you think you need to improve on before those races? There's not a ton of time, but if you could like flip a switch and say, hey, I'm going to be better at this right now, what would you want to be better at for those races?
For those races, probably my climbing ability. I think my weight is up a bit from last year. So I think it's hard to lose a lot of weight when you're racing like every month and not much time in between. But just because there's so much climbing in those races.
What do you think was the weight gain? Is it more muscle, or is it just you're just a bigger dude this year, or where does that come from?
I hope it's all muscle.
I love it, Frank.
No, I really try to fuel all the sessions in the winter. So that's probably just an energy surplus. But
do you ever do any fasted training, or if that comment makes me think no, but maybe I'm wrong. Do you ever do fasted stuff, or are you more like fuel the work?
No, I think fasted is probably only beneficial when you're time limited. I'd rather train more and eat more than try to train with less fuel.
And to dive in on that just real quick, would that be if you were crunch for time, the whole point of doing carb restricted training just because it's going to put more stress on your body then?
Yeah, I think that's like maybe 5 years ago, that was the thought that there was more like these signaling enzymes, or I don't. It's a bit too specific, but I think that was the thinking, that if you do an endurance ride, but you started with less glycogen, I think that's the thinking behind it.
Yeah, I'm more in the fuel, the work camp, but it's always interesting to hear what other people have to think about that. What do you do? Are you in the gym at all?
Not the gym, but I do some strength training at home.
What kind of strength training? I was wondering if that was going to come out when you had mentioned weight being up. Maybe you were just getting more jacked in a good way. But what strength stuff are you doing?
It's mostly some squats and Bulgarian split squats and a hamstring curl. But it's very very limited.
But you feel like it's effective for you?
I'm not sure. I do it because, of course, it's because my it's in the training plan, but also to maintain a more healthy body, keep the bone density up. That's more my my personal motivation behind it.
So being on a world tour team, you have to have a coach. Did you have a coach beforehand, or did you switch coaches when you got to this level, or how does that work?
I've never had a real coach, or in our team we call them trainers, and we call DS's coaches. So it's a bit need to switch the.
Yeah, I do that. Thank you for explaining that.
No, but in our block we had a performance manager, or it
Mm.
was just someone who looked at the training a little bit. But then I was still training myself. And then when I joined DSM, I got a trainer from the development team, and now I have the trainer from the GC group. It's all grouped into different groups.
Okay, that's cool. Always learning something here. That's good to know. What so does the trainer feel like strength work is important when you say it's on the program? Do most of your teammates do it, or is that a conversation like what if you were like, "Hey, this is kind of I feel like I'm maybe just getting tired from doing this." Would they be receptive to that, or are they more this is important?
I think mainly on the camp, like this is important. But
Mm.
I think for example, Warren Barguil, I think he doesn't do much strength training,
Mm.
and I think he discussed it with the like. He's of course a very experienced rider and knows what his body needs.
Mm.
But I think almost everybody does some strength training, and I think the sprinters do the most, and the climbers do the least.
Mm. Okay. It's interesting. I always feel like, and I'm not a climber. I'm a bigger guy, but I feel like if I was climbing, I would want to do some because you're definitely using your arms a little bit, and the arms seem to fatigue a lot if you're not doing any strength training. But I'm not a pro, so
Yeah.
but it's always struck me as like, why not lift just a little bit, like get a little bit stronger. It's not like they're gonna get that much bigger, but um, what's you mentioned like the experience of Warren. Like, have you been able to pick up any gems from these riders that you're now around who have more experience and who have been living the pro life and just know how to handle just these massive loads of training? Anything that's stuck out that has been a good thing to learn so far?
Um, Nothing that I really can think of.
Hmm. What do you feel when you have workout sessions that are like pretty hard, kind of from like the mental side? You've progressed so quickly into the highest level of racing. Um, is there any not coping skills, but when you have hard sessions, or maybe even a hard race, like how do you stay in a positive mindset? And are there any like routine thoughts that you have that whether you're doing like before a hard workout or before a hard race, or do you just show up and say, "Hey, I'm giving it my best shot. Let's go"?
I think for hard workouts, I have the routine to. Um, so I get the workout basically in plain text, and it says, for example, do uh, 4 times 8 minutes, 40 20s at this power target, and then I have this routine to program the workout so that I can put it on my head unit, and it just tells me what to do. I don't know if it's beneficial, but I feel like it really prepares me also mentally for the session.
That's interesting. So the trainer doesn't even put it into Training Peaks or anything like that. It's just like a text message that you get or
No,
an email or something?
we don't use Training Peaks for planning. I think it's only used for analysis.
Okay.
Um, so I can't just sync it up with my Wahoo. It's a
Okay.
bit unfortunate.
What do you guys use for planning?
We use Excel actually,
Okay.
and Dropbox.
Oh wow. That's in any do you know why? That seems to me maybe like a little bit antiquated or old school.
Yeah, I I don't know how it uh, like how long it's been used, but I think it's yeah. Of course, it's something that the team can completely manage. It's not that
Hmm.
you're relying on software
Right.
updates, maybe breaking stuff, or and
Hmm.
I think it's not super ergonomic to use, but yeah, it gets the job done.
Is that pretty do you know like from your friends on other teams, is that pretty common?
I think not. I think almost every team now uses Training Peaks. I think today's
Okay.
plan got. I think they're done now. I think
Okay.
everybody uses Training Peaks.
Interesting. Let's talk about nutrition for a little bit. What do these classic races, especially like Flanders, just super long. You've kind of talked about the pre-race nutrition. What about on the bike? Maybe talk us through breakfast through the end of the race.
Breakfast we do for Flanders. I think it was 3 hours before.
Okay.
Probably the earliest. I think at 7 o'clock. The race starts at 10, and then we also had daylight savings starting last weekend, so that was an extra short night. But then breakfast is pretty for classics. Just try to get in as much food as possible.
Are you just eating till you're full and a little bit more, or like are you stuffing yourself, or like even more specific? And what are you eating? Do you go like oatmeal? Are you eating rice? Are you eating cookies?
I must admit I have a very big appetite. So for me, I can get in quite a lot of food, and then I prefer rice most of the time. But mostly, what we get is oatmeal from the team, and bread and omelette. And then for Flanders specifically, I think we had some rice porridge.
Okay. And then from 3 hours to the start of the race, you taking any gels or any other solid food, or are you like a hard after 3 hours, no more solid food, or what's your protocol?
I prefer not to have too much food. Just let the breakfast digest. I think the nutrition plan is a little bit different, but I'm not sure actually.
I don't want to get you in trouble here.
Yeah, I need to watch.
I love it. You're like, I'm eating it. Let me read the nutrition plan here. So on that day, I had this. Yeah. My bad. What about caffeine? Are you taking drink any coffee, espresso, tea?
So on just a normal training day, I have some coffee at breakfast, and then I try to limit it mostly. And then in the race, I do quite a lot, I think, compared to what others do. I think it's around, depending on I think some guys, they only take a caffeine gel for the 1 hour before the final, but I think that's not very beneficial. But I think I do around 300 milligrams for let's say a short stage, and then for classics maybe it's close to 400 milligrams.
Okay. And when you say short, to you like a 4 hour race or 3?
Yeah, maybe 3 hours is probably the shortest stage we do.
And so then on the bike during the classics, are you doing more liquid carbs, gels, food? What are you bringing?
So it's probably more interesting to say what I did last year first.
Sure.
Because then we had everybody could use his own nutrition. And then I really only did liquid carbohydrates, so either bottles or gels. And that I really enjoy to. First of all, it's easy to take in when the racing is can be a bit hectic at times. And for me, it was also comfortable in my stomach.
So that was last year, or that was this year?
That was last year.
And then what'd you change? Yeah.
When I joined the team, I think my carb intake is a bit less overall. Probably a bit more bars. And that's mostly what I changed.
Are they are they making these bars, or these bars that you can buy? Do you guys have a sponsor?
We have actually it's changing, so I probably can't comment on it too much.
No worries. Okay. And then when you're doing, long training rides, are you sticking to the liquid carbs and gels, or do you eat more solid food? I guess it depends on like the type of session, or what are you doing at home?
It depends on the session. Also, a bit how close to racing I am. We get a lot of stuff from the team
Mm.
to train with, but I find if I use it all year, then I really get flavor fatigue. So
Mm.
if I have
Mm.
just like a month of training, I'll try to mix it up with either some normal food or just some plain carbohydrates.
Okay, that makes sense. I was actually just thinking too, when it's interesting you've made it so far being self-coached. How does that resonate with you now, having somebody send you workouts? And if you're doing sort of sticking to your like 3 days on, 1 day off, and maybe they have the workout for Monday, but you're like, I'd rather do this on Tuesday. Like, is there a lot of collaboration, or are they more, hey, this is what you should be doing?
Um, to be honest, I haven't really asked for much changes.
Mm.
So I don't know how lenient it would be.
Okay.
I've
So you
just
get it and you just go rip it.
yeah that yeah of course I get sessions, some sessions with quite a bit, like quite a open target. So then it's kind of self-describing maybe.
Mm.
Um,
Going on that, that's actually interesting to hear, because I think as amateurs, a lot of us, we look at a workout and we're overly specific. And one of my coaches was actually based in Europe, and he said it was a very American thing. But can you give an example of a workout where it would have these open targets, where it gives you a little bit more opportunity to hit the gas if you're feeling good, or maybe you're not feeling so good, but you're still kind of working the system? Is that like one of these 4x8 sessions, or maybe something above critical power? Or how do you, when you mentioned that, what were you thinking of?
First of all, endurance rides.
Mm.
That's quite a. I think I could do a 210 watt ride or a 250 or maybe even
Okay.
higher. So there's quite a lot of room to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the micro intervals. Most of the time, it's more a target for the on part, and then the recovery is really. Sometimes when you feel good, you keep pushing quite high, because it's
Mm.
also a big confidence boost if you come back and you see especially the normalized power. Sometimes you can really inflate that number, uh, and that's just nice for the confidence.
Mm. I like that. I wasn't thinking of you saying the recovery aspect. That's interesting. When we're on nutrition, any supplements or anything that you feel like helps you recover, or just food only?
In terms of supplements, vitamin D is important if you don't get enough sunlight exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also dependent on your skin color, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Then um, we also get omega-3,
Mm.
which is probably like if you hit your head, that might be also a good supplement for for brain injury. And yeah, there's not much in supplements, I think.
Yeah. No, it's fine. What's the this is you've shared a lot about your training and just recovering and how to manage all this stress. Is there anything in your daily routine that you really feel like just helps you be the best athlete you can be?
I don't think there's much in my routine. It's more that I'm just a lazy person. I, I just like to do nothing.
Have you always been that way?
Yeah, I think so.
That's hilarious to hear world tour cyclists call themselves lazy. It's like you're doing tons of training, and maybe you're just properly expending the energy at the right times, and then knowing how to recover.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's I don't think it's a maybe you can call it a routine, but I really like to take my time in the morning. Uh,
Mm.
take
Mm-hmm.
my time to make breakfast, leave some time in between before I leave for training. I don't know if this beneficial, but it's something I do.
So you are hitting a point very close to home for me where I live in North Carolina. That's more I like to take my time, make coffee, do some work, and go train in the afternoon. I was down in Florida, a different part of the US, and everybody trains super early, 5:30. Like if you leave at 7 a.m., that's late because the traffic where I live down there is just kind of gets out of control and it's not good. My mindset, and I realized my just like overall calmness increased so much more when I came back to North Carolina and could sort of be in control of, I don't want to say in control, when I could follow what my body wanted to do rather than get up, go out the door, there's no time for breakfast, is just way more chaotic. So I think you're right. That is part of your routine. And I think it's smart to be aware of what's making you feel so good. I think because even, when you talk about your training, it's how do you feel from the training, the RPE. It seems like you're really in tune with yourself as an athlete. And I think that is like kudos to you for being aware of that. So yeah, that's a good one.
I
I
wouldn't
think
say I'm very aware of it. I think it's
no.
always no, I think it's something you're always tuning,
Mm,
and I think that's might be also a bit the one of the biggest difference between the younger guys in the peloton and the older guys.
mm. In terms of what do you mean by that?
Yeah, just knowing what is too much, what is too little,
Mm,
uh, more the nuances.
okay, meaning that they have more experience and they know how to handle that better.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What do you like to do in the lazy time? Do you have any hobbies or things that you just like watching Netflix or something, or what's going on?
I like reading, like reading Twitter or watching YouTube, um, listening to podcasts, that type of stuff.
Awesome. Let's talk. Last thing I'm really curious about is like the bike tech that has maybe what's changed since you now probably have the best support, the best mechanics, the best equipment. Is there anything that about your setup that you just love from now having access to all the best gear, or have you always been like, are you into cycling tech, or are you more just like, hey, give me a bike and I'll go ride it?
No, I really like not focus on it, uh, but I like geeky tech stuff.
What are you big
Uh,
into? What's like really draws you in?
Last year I was really big on the base layers and the aerodynamic fabrics, that type of stuff.
Like, what did you find was the best that, I mean, and is this anything, do you go by feel again, or is this like you're testing this, or tell us about that?
Uh, I would say it was more by feel,
Okay.
and at that point, especially racing on continental level, you're trying to optimize with a limited budget. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also finding out a bit, where do I spend my money? And I thought this was maybe a point where I can get an advantage without it was expensive for a piece of fabric, but maybe it's better than a pair of wheels.
Mm. We had a lot of people commenting. We had a rider on that was talking about aero socks, and man, people were very opinionated about this. So I think when you talk about fabrics, you're dead on, and people they're in one camp or the other. So are you doing aero socks?
Just I can only use stuff from the team,
Okay.
but we have aero socks.
How I've always read different things when teams would have, and don't feel like, if you don't want to comment on this you don't have to, but team is sponsored by company XYZ and people will be putting shoe covers over them so they can wear their own shoes, and this person wants to ride these components and this other guy rides that, and da da. Is the team usually split in like half are happy and half are kind of disappointed, or it's got to be interesting when you're sort of pigeonholed into certain equipment? Do you hear, like, are some people super stoked and some kind of grumbling, like, oh, I hate this?
I think it's really different in between teams.
Mm,
At some teams, you have the freedom to use your own shoes. Other teams,
mm,
it's mandatory. Um,
okay.
Same goes for some teams. They, yeah, I really look at this in races, like what socks are guys wearing? And
Yeah.
that team, everybody is wearing different socks, and this team, everybody has the same stuff. Uh, so it's funny how much difference there is in the peloton between teams.
So then away from the fabrics, any other tech stuff that's really kind of that you're trying to optimize with this year?
To be honest, I don't spend much time thinking about this because
Mm,
um, I don't have much control over it.
mm-hmm.
So not really.
Okay. And then my last question on was there anything on DSM that you were super stoked to get? Like I'm not familiar with all your guys' equipment, so like maybe a frame or wheels, or were you just pretty happy with whatever they gave you?
I really like the Scott bikes.
Ah,
Just
we,
we have just one model for
mm-hmm.
aero and climbing, and I think we can get it to really close to the weight limit.
Mm.
I really enjoy that.
Yeah. What is that bike called now? I've lost track of their. I know it was the foil at one point, but that's probably outdated now.
I think Scott Foil RC
Okay.
Ultimate. There's
Yeah.
also an SL sticker on my frame now. I don't know.
Okay. I had a man. It was a long time ago. I think it was the one right before the foil. That bike was badass. It was so stiff and just. Oh man, I love that bike. What's This was awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and give us some insights behind the curtain of everything going on with Frank. Sorry, I kept saying Frank. And anything else that you want to share with the listeners or people that are following you, get to know you a little bit better?
um, that's
We kind of hit on a lot, but maybe I missed a
you
topic
should have
or.
sent me this question before. Then I would have given a thoughtful.
See, sometimes I did, but then I'm trying to keep a little more free flowing and just going off what you give me. And no, it's all sometimes there's not. Actually, here's I've got one more for you. And it's just awesome to see how fast you've achieved what you've achieved and just where you're going to be going. Can you think of a piece of advice or anything that's stuck with you that it doesn't even have to be cycling related? And maybe not. I think the term mantra sometimes is a little bit too serious. But anything ever somebody said to you that's just motivated you and you kind of keep with you, like that just keeps you going and is a really good piece of advice?
I would say, for me personally, I never thought about cycling as a career opportunity or something. That idea of being able to become a professional cyclist came really late to me. So in terms of giving advice, I would say, really aim for the stars.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this then, when you were maybe 16, 17, as you were getting into cycling really more seriously, if we asked Frank then, what did you want to become? Or did you have any idea of what you wanted to be as an adult?
To be honest, I had no idea. I was just going through the motions of being a regular student or a high school student. Yeah, I lacked really a vision for what to become, which I don't know if this was good or bad, but it's just how it worked out.
Maybe not having that vision allowed you to be open to all this cycling all of a sudden came into your life and you're like, oh, whoa, okay, maybe I'm going to follow this. Yeah, I think everybody's different. I've always, even when I was in college, I was a little envious of some of my friends that knew from freshman year they wanted to go and be a doctor and they're going to med school and they're on this track. And I'm like, man, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I definitely didn't think I'd be doing this, but it's, you're following your own journey, man. That's awesome. Well, we'll post your Instagram handle and you mentioned Twitter. Are you on Twitter, TikTok? Do you blog? What's the best way for people to keep up with you?
No, I'm just a lurker on Twitter.
I love it.
No,
Love
just
it.
Instagram and Strava for Instagram every now and then, and Strava, almost daily. Sometimes I'll put a title on my route.
Very cool. Frank, thank you so much for doing this. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit him up. Maybe even hit him up on Twitter. See what he's lurking around on, what he's liking, and maybe a retweet here and there. Good luck with your training and racing, and we'll talk to you guys all soon.